Hey, you guys are watching the video lesson for Chapter 2, Lesson 3 on changing percents and decimals to each other. So, before we start getting into the book problems, I want you to take a second and pause this video, and you're going to fill out your foldable. So, just so you know what goes in your foldable, this is your cover. This will be the top flap, and we're going to write deep, and that's going to help you remember to change a decimal to a percent. You move the decimal twice to the right. And for the bottom one, you have deep. Notice the arrow goes to the left here, and that's going to remind you for percent to decimal, you move your decimal twice left. So pause the video, get this filled out, and then when you restart it, we're going to start in the book. Go ahead. Okay, so make sure if you're with me now that you have already filled out your graphic organizer, your foldable. So we're going to start in this first page where it's going to be changing percents to decimals. So I'm going to get our word deep written down and show you how to use it, because deep is going to be your best friend. So if in example 1 it says write each percent as a decimal, we are going to take 56% and we are going to write it as a decimal, and we are going to use deep to help us out. So here's what deep tells us. Since 56% is a percent, you start at the P, and you're going to move your decimal 2 times to the left to make it a decimal. So remember, the P is percent, the D is decimal. The 2 E's help us remember that you move it 2 times. So again, percent the decimal 2 times left. So watch how we do this in 56%. So you'll have to know in every whole number the decimal is really hidden at the end here. We just don't show it. So when we move it twice to the left, we go once, twice, X marks the spot. Your decimal is going to be 0.56 or 56 hundredths. So let's go down to example 2, 8%. We're going to show you again. Remember, the decimal is at the end. It's right there. Now, in order to move it twice left, because it's a percent and we're going to the left, you have to add a 0 first so we have enough digits. Then we're going to move it twice left. So it goes from here once, twice. Now your decimal is going to be before the 0. So your decimal is 0.08, 8 hundredths. Okay, and then I'll show you one more. Example 3, 2%. Remember deep. Now, and also remember the decimal starts at the end of a whole number, and we're going to go twice to the left. Don't forget to add your 0. And it's going to become 0.02 or 2 hundredths. All right, so let's go down to the got it problems. We have 3 examples. I want you to change these percents to a decimal and start by writing the word deep so you can see it. That's going to help you remember the direction to move the decimal point. So pause the video, do A, B, and C. When you're done, hit play and see if you are correct. Go. All right, let's see how you did. So remember, if you have any mistakes, you're going to want to fix them. So I'm going to write deep here as a little reminder. I'm going twice left to go from percent to decimal. So the decimal goes from here. Here's once, twice, X marks the spot. It's going to be 0.32 or 32 hundredths. Okay, let's go on to B. So when I do B, 6%, I'm going to rewrite deep here. And my decimal is at the end of every whole number, and I'm going to fill in a 0 before I move it. Once, twice, X marks the spot. It's going to be 0.06 or 6 hundredths. Okay, and in C, we have 93%. I'm going to write deep again. We're going to move it twice to the left. It starts at the whole number at the end. Once, twice, X marks the spot. You should have 0.93 or 93 hundredths. Now, if you had all 3 of these right, give yourself a C for each one. If you made any mistakes, just fix them and think about it before we go on to the next page. Okay, on this page, we are going to be doing the opposite. We are going to take decimals and change them to percents. So let me show you an example 4 and 5. Now, in example 4, it says write 38 hundredths as a percent. So I'm going to remember deep. And remember, now we're starting with a decimal, and we're moving it twice to the right to make it a percent. So if I move this decimal twice to the right and put it at the end, it becomes 38%. Now, if I go down to example 5, you have a 1-digit one. Be careful with these. Because if I'm going to move my decimal twice to the right, like Deep tells me to, I have to remember to add a 0 first because I don't have enough digits. Once, twice, X marks the spot, I get 20%. So now we're just going twice to the right. So now here's your job. You are going to pause the video and do D, E, and F. When you're done, restart it and make any corrections if you made any mistakes. Go ahead, pause it now. All right, so let's get started. Let's start with D. You have 47 hundredths, and I'm going to write deep. Now remember, we're going twice to the right to go from decimal to percent. Move this twice to the right, and you have 47%. Okay, let's go on to E, 73 hundredths. So I'm going to write my deep down. It's a decimal, so you go twice to the right. Once, twice, you get 73%. And the last one, problem F, we have 5/10. So remember, with deep, we have to go twice to the right. But don't forget, we have to add a 0. You need 2 digits. Now when we go once, twice, you're going to have 50%. All right, so how'd you do on those 3? Did you get them all right? If so, give yourself C's. If you had any wrong, make sure you fix them and learn from it. All right, one more page. We have example 6. So this is just going to put it in a more real-world scenario. So let's read it and see what it says. It says, the United States produces more corn than any other country, producing 0.4 or 4/10 of the total corn crops. Write 4/10 as a percent. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with the decimal 0.4, and I'm going to write deep and think about the direction I'm going to go. Since it's a decimal, I'm going to go twice to the right. I have to add a 0, so I can go twice to the right. And if I do that, I get 40%. So here's what that means. In the United States, we produce 40% of the world's corn, which is almost half of the world's corn, which is pretty cool. All right, so that's it for the ones I'm going to be going over. If you were absent, I'm sure you're going to be working on some of the other problems on this page. Make sure you check your absence sheet so you know which ones. Thanks, and as always, please ask me any questions if you need help.